Good evening, folks. This is The Weird Part, and I am your host, Vincent Treewell. My special guest this evening is a returning friend of the show, Star Vance, and we will be discussing some interesting topics. Welcome aboard, Star.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well today.
Yes, yes, indeed. Tonight we're going to talk about something that is a very real conspiracy. Now, when I say conspiracy, people often think that I'm going to be talking to whistleblowers who've found the hidden truth, been using numerology or something like that. And that's not what we're talking about at all. This is something that involves a product that you probably have consumed today. I know that I have, um, that is embedded in our society and in our culture, and that has a huge commercial impact.
Hmm.
Nothing that we're going to say is something that you can't find easily in very mainstream media, yet very few of us know about it. Um, for what it's worth, neither myself nor Star is giving medical advice here.
Nope.
That you should find out on your own, and you should find it out from legitimate medical professionals. What,
Absolutely.
what we're going to be talking about today is the power of the sugar lobby, and it is a real force to be reckoned with in American society. Um, and it's something that impacts each and every one of us in one way or another in our day-to-day lives, in our very bodies, not to mention in politics and the whole world that we live in. So yes, I guess we'll just jump right into it. Most people, I would say, have a belief that the main, and this is something that I've been hearing for decades, and probably, would you say your whole life, Star? That
Absolutely.
yes, that fat is the real danger.
Yep.
That dietary fat, eating fat makes you fat, and that if you could eat a fat-free diet, you would be slim and healthy and things would be good.
Hmm.
But that isn't really true, and that isn't even the tip of the iceberg, or maybe the very smallest tip of the iceberg. Um, there is a reason that for many years we've been hearing from so-called experts and sometimes legitimate experts who may not have been getting the best interpretation of the data, and that is because very powerful forces related to the sugar industry, by which I mean large growers, large processors, and large distributors of sugar, had paid a good deal of money to create studies and create data that emphasized the dangers of fat and drastically minimized the importance of sugar, how bad
Hmm.
sugar really was for you. And sometimes I can, you know, get deeply in love with the sound of my own voice. So please,
No,
Star, if at any moment, just feel
no,
free to.
sorry. You're spouting all this good information. I don't want to interrupt. Um,
You may have to if you want to be heard at all. I get carried away a little bit, but yeah, feel free to just jump right in anytime.
okay. I did want to just mention you made me remember. I remember in biology class in high school. I remember we had a lesson that my wonderful biology teacher, very smart, caring gentleman, who really cared about the environment and the students, he taught us like, yeah, don't eat fat. Like, don't eat fat. Like, fat is the bad guy. Like, if you eat fat, you'll get heart disease, kidney disease, not kidney disease, but all this horrible diseases. And uh he wouldn't he's not the kind of person who would lie about that kind of thing. So they like got into our classrooms and are teaching our kids like, yeah, fat is the issue, when really ladies and gentlemen, it's really not. Um,
Absolutely. I mean, it was very mainstreamed. It
mhm,
was, the people who did, you know, research, did look up things without really, digging through it, but looked at what are the easily available facts, were pointed to fat as the villain and sugar as really not even being that big a deal.
mhm. In some
Just,
cases, it's being marketed as healthy.
oh, absolutely. I don't know if, and I'm showing my age here, which is no problem. I am in my 50s, but, and this may be, before your time, Star, but Snackwell cookies were marketed as being very good for you because they were fat-free. Of course, they had enough sugar to, knock down an ox, but they, figuratively speaking, but they had a lot of sugar. They're just pure
Hmm.
sugar. And that overall would be terrible for you. And I don't think well, I don't think they're sold anymore. And I don't think that anybody would recommend that anyone eat those. But for a decade, they were, I'm guessing, but about a decade, they were very much promoted as a healthier alternative.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's insane.
it is. It's crazy, but it didn't happen by accident. And this wasn't an honest mistake by dietary scientists. It was quite the opposite. Uh,
Yeah.
just to source this, this comes from National Public Radio, dated September 13th of 2016 by Kamala Demansky. 50 years ago, sugar industry quietly paid scientists to point blame at fat.
Mm,
And yeah, so I mean it comes from NPR and goes into an article that was back in 2016 published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, Internal Medicine. And it shows on internal documents to show an industry group called the Sugar Research Foundation wanted to refute concerns about sugar's possible role in heart disease. And so the SRF sponsored research by Harvard scientists, and amazingly, they got exactly the result they were paying for.
wow.
And that results that fat's really bad for you, and sugar is not really a big deal, was published in many high-profile journals and became kind of the status quo for dietary science for a long time. The same um, incidents were covered in the New York Times. How, I'm quoting here, how the sugar industry shifted blame to fat. And that's an article by Anad O'Connor from September 12th, 2016. 2016 was when a lot of this broke out, that documents were available, that this was a calculated ploy,
Mm,
that Big Sugar had the Sugar Research Foundation, known today, it's still around today, as the Sugar Association, paid three Harvard scientists the equivalent of $50,000 in today's money to publish a 1967 review of research on sugar, fat, and heart disease. And this minimized the link between sugar and heart health and cast aspersions on the role of saturated fat. And this was not a one-time occurrence. This went on and became the norm and became what people believed. And it filtered down. I mean, if this is happening in 1967, you can imagine people going to med school are taught this.
yeah.
People becoming dietitians are taught this. People in going into being high school biology teachers taught this. People are taught this at every level of nursing and just everything that influences diet. And it was found, that those were paid for studies.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how widespread this has become. Like it's hard to articulate, but
It's hard to find things without sugar in them.
yeah, hard to find things without sugar in them, and hard to believe like how hard they're going for this. Like Sugar is already addictive. It's already everywhere, but it, it's like they, and I guess I mean the lobbyists, or big sugar. Um, they're still pushing so hard for it, and I'm just wondering, like, is there? I guess there is always more money to be made, but like,
Oh, yes.
what is really the drive?
And a lot of industries, which are not sugar producers or, distributors, but are the big makers of common, household foods, stuff that most of us eat every day, um, have taken in large amounts of sugar.
Hmm.
And, this, we could spend a chunk of time on just the machinations behind the prioritizing of fat as a danger and the minimizing of sugar as a danger, and how backward that is, and how the negative things that sugar can do to your body. But I wanted to really mention that sugar, as you mentioned, is it's addictive. I want to bring up Dr. Robert Lutzig,
Ah, yes.
who is a real expert in this field. And I'm just trying to look at my data on him here because
I believe he's an endocrinologist, and he worked with kids for
yes,
much of his at the beginning of his career. And uh his question, he saw that a lot of kids were obese, and he was wondering why, like, how can I fix this? How can I help this? And this was like around the time where, well, which was, still technically happening, but this was around the time where, fat was being demonized and sugar being minimized as dangerous. Um and he found that he did research, and he found that sugar was the culprit. Like, he had to dig pretty deep, and this was, I'm not exactly sure when, but it was like over 30 years ago. And
yes,
he had to dig really deep, and he found that, yeah, sugar was the cause. And like, he found that he was surprised that, it was so hard to find this information, since it was so like black and white, basically, that sugar was the cause.
yes. I called this up here. Robert H. Lustig, which is Lustig,
Mhm.
American pediatric endocrinologist. Yeah, so exactly what you said. He came to public attention in '09 with his medical lecture, Sugar, the Bitter Truth. And he's the editor of Obesity Before Birth, Maternal and Prenatal Influences on the Offspring, and the author of Fat Chance, Beating the Odds Against Sugar, Processed Food, Obesity, and Disease. And that, of course, made him really popular. No, no, it
Mhm.
didn't. He really,
Unpopular.
yes, he's been kind of pushed into a corner in the United States.
Hmm.
He's much better received in the UK. But the laws are very different over there,
Yeah.
and there's much more control over what can be put into foods. And he's a person with the qualifications and, you know, the ability to back up what he's saying. And what he's saying is that sugar is addictive in a way beyond other foods that might not be good for you, but specifically like your white processed sugar and corn syrup sugar
Hmm.
are are literally physically addictive, is kind of
Hmm.
the thrust of what he's saying. And that it's not just, well, I eat cheese because I like cheese. There's a way that sugar hits parts of your brain that are, our pleasure centers, and, really hooks you um, in a way more similar to a drug than to a food group. Would
Yeah,
you say that's
I
about
would
right, Star?
absolutely. He says several times that the added sugar in our food, um, like high fructose corn syrup, has there's no organ or process in the body that needs that. Just like with alcohol, there's no process or organ in the body that needs alcohol or sugar to function. Like with fats, certain organs in your body need that to actually function. Like same with protein and vitamins and minerals and all that. Uh, High fructose corn syrup or fructose, I should say. Fructose, glucose, and sucrose. I'm not exactly sure about this type of sugar, um, but those two in specific, they your body does not need them. So when you ingest that, uh, it really is truly not to sound too conspiracy over here, but it really is truly exactly like a drug because your body doesn't need it at all, and it hits your like gets your that dopamine going, and you know you're human, like you want more of that dopamine, so you just keep eating more and more and more. Um, and when you eat more, you want more of that. You buy more, and you just keep fueling the sugar companies' pocket so they can keep you addicted. I don't know how
Yes.
more kindly to say that, but it's true.
Oh no, I'd say that exactly fits the picture of what is happening and what's been going on for a long time. And if you feel free to test this out for yourself and go shopping at a regular supermarket, like most vast majority of us go to, and see what you can find that doesn't have added sugar,
Hmm.
because it
You'll
slims it
be
down real quick.
surprised. You'll be shocked.
Mhm.
Like even the savory sauces that you like tomato sauce is so I was so upset when I saw how much sugar is in tomato sauce and ketchup, barbecue sauce. Like it's everywhere. Like it
I
really is
was stunned
everywhere.
to find out, yes, the sugar content of ketchup, which
Hmm.
I would have guessed it about zero, you know. I just thought they ground up the tomatoes and that was pretty much it, you know. And no, that's not it. And even the healthy seeming cereals all have almost all have the added sugar.
Like at
And
least like 34% of your daily value, which is a lot. I'm just saying.
Mhm.
Um,
And it's in all sorts of things you would not think of to just, get you to want more of that and, you know, make it taste good in a way that we've been kind of habituated to enjoying
mhm.
instead of experiencing it the way it would really be if it was just the natural things that it would take to make this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is
That
amazing.
reminds me.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No.
That reminds me, this is just a testimonial, but a lot of Europeans that come to America and eat our bread, they think it's like cake because it has so much sugar in it. But to us, it just tastes like regular white bread, and that's bland. Like doesn't even taste sweet at all because we're just pumping so much sugar into our bodies and under our tongues that we don't even realize how much we're getting and like how sweet things really are.
Yes, that was one of the shocking things when I started looking into this at at a practical level for my own consumption. How much of bread, just your
Mm-hmm.
basic bread that I would think, would be pretty simple, always had added sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you pointed that out, that everywhere around the world isn't like this. America has some of the problems we have because just tons, quite literally, of added sugar are being put into almost everything. And that becomes a norm that when you start tasting things that are just their fundamental, necessary natural ingredients, it tastes off
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't have a layer of sugar on top of it.
Like
And it's just, and it's really bad for you. It's not
yeah.
good. And a lot of our different epidemics that are going on in today's world, in particularly in the United States, but elsewhere too, because big sugar loves to dump it on the third world. Um,
Oh yeah.
that yes, what Americans are eating is kind of the blueprint for what everybody we'll be eating if certain corporations have their way. And
Mm, hmm.
yes, because the way Americans eat makes some people a lot of money at a
Yeah.
cost to us,
Yeah.
us as
We
normal,
the
regular
people.
American people, yes, eating what's on the shelves and getting a ton of sugar. And then, you know, all of the problems that we're having down the line. Um, and some is speculation, albeit speculation grounded in fact. Um, the the obesity epidemic, the diabetes epidemic, of which I am a member.
Hmm.
Um, but I would also, and yes, I'm speculating, but only within the realms of things that have been noticed and documented.
Hmm.
The ADHD epidemic.
Yes,
I
there's
would,
a
you
huge
know,
link to sugar consumption and ADHD, an enormous link. Um, I I haven't quite done as much research on this particular topic as I want to yet, but I do remember there was a some doctor was saying he was kind of upset all these people are and children are claiming that they're ADHD, and especially now a lot of people are claiming that they have autism, like self-diagnosis, but really it's most likely diet, because sugar really affects focus. Sugar affects your mood. Like those sugar spikes, like if your sugar spikes, it's going to drop. Like there's like a baseline your body has, and if you have like a coffee with sugar in the morning, it's going to spike really high and it's going to drop really low, which can be a huge cause for the depression and anxiety that comes with the feelings of autism and ADHD. So yeah, I Russ, Robert Lustig said it beautifully. Don't just, if there's an issue, don't just assume that it's that the medical that it's something medical. Like assume that it's diet first. And I'm not giving medical advice here. Like we're not doing that. I'm just saying,
no, no, no.
see if it's something that you can control with your diet first, because 9 times out of 10 it is.
And I can concur that I have type 2 diabetes and I am on a couple of different medications for that that keeps it under control. But having that experience, I can tell when my blood sugar is high or when it's dropping or when it's spiking. It is very noticeable in my own experience. And the thing is, you don't have to be diabetic to have that happen at
Mhm.
all. And many, like when I say many, I mean millions of people are diabetic or pre-diabetic and have no idea. Um, they haven't been diagnosed, but it's still affecting you. And even if you don't have diabetes, it can still definitely be affecting you.
Absolutely.
And it messes with your mood and it messes with your ability to concentrate.
Mhm.
It keeps you, depending on the circumstances, it can keep you up at night. It can make it difficult to focus. It can either make you lethargic or make
Or
you jittery.
hyperactive.
Yes, one of the two extremes.
It can wake
And
you up in the middle of the night to crave more. Lots of people have nighttime cravings, and it's normally for like
oh, yes,
chocolate or their sweets. Lots of people struggle with this, and it's because your body's like, I need my hit,
yes.
I need my dopamine.
And I am in no way suggesting that ADHD isn't real, that there are some people who 100% have that. However, if you were, and again, no medical advice, we're just talking people that eat food.
Yes, yes.
We're talking as people who eat food to other people that eat food. Um, if you came upon a friend or someone talking, an acquaintance who was saying they had a medical condition or a psychological condition, and you knew for a fact that they followed some really extreme crazy diet and they were just eating a ton of whatever every day and almost nothing else, you'd probably point out that, maybe that's the cause
Mm,
before jumping into you should take this prescription drug.
hmm.
Um,
That was very well said.
Thank you. Thank you. And what we don't do as a society is look at diet really at all when we're handing out the Ritalin and the other one that is basically a high grade stimulant. And I'm not gonna say it's a low grade meth, but I'm not saying that. Um, the
Right.
the name is escaping me. A lot of college kids like to take it to focus.
Oh,
You know what I mean. Like I think everybody knows what I mean, and I'm not trying to not say it. I just am blanking on it right now. It's not Ritalin, but it's the other one.
I'm not
The
sure.
Yeah, there's a
Oh, Adderall?
Adderall. Yes, when we're handing out the
Okay.
Adderall, we're not looking at what is this person eating.
Hmm.
What is this person getting anywhere near enough sleep?
Right.
Um, yes, it's hard to focus in class when the class is at 10 a.m. and you came in at 3 a.m. You know, it may not be something wrong with your brain. It may be that your brain is perfectly healthy, but what you're asking it to do is not normal
Hmm.
for the human body and mind and brain as it's evolved. You
Right.
know, you
It's
need a certain amount of
also
sleep. Go ahead.
if you're that student is consuming a lot of sugar, it's also more very highly likely that that student is inflamed in their entire body. And inflammation is Lustig puts it really well. Inflammation is good when it's needed, but when it's chronic, when it's all day, every day, that's what's really causing all this stress that's killing people, all the the heart disease, the clogged arteries is the inflammation in the body. Not to mention the effects that it has on the brain. Um, so I did want to mention the inflammation and I also just
Inflammation is a huge source of medical problems. And as you said,
mm,
it's good in its place. It's the body's result to something attacking it.
mhm,
Like if you get a bruise, if you hit get hit by something real hard and you get a big bruise,
yeah,
it is
it
inflamed, it's
heals you.
swollen,
Yeah,
and that's your body sending all of the blood and the cells there so it can repair the damage.
yeah,
And internally as well. If something goes wrong, it will become inflamed because your body's repairing it. But if you are constantly inflamed, that is a cause. There's not one cause for all problems, but inflammation is probably the closest thing to that.
yes,
It causes all sorts of problems
yeah.
and makes whatever you have a lot worse.
Hmm.
And
One
yes,
interesting little thing I found I want to share.
yes, please.
So a lot of people take vitamin D uh to increase mood and get all the good things that vitamin D gives you. Um and we'll take vitamin D in capsules to help with that. However, if two people who are pretty much the same take vitamin D and one person is inflamed and the other is not, that person who's inflamed, who probably needs it the most because they're inflamed, uh, due to that inflammation, they'll just pee it right out because the way the liver works, there's a receptor in there that cannot take vitamin D if it is inflamed. But the person who's not inflamed, if they take vitamin D, they'll get all that good, the goodness that they need from vitamin D. Uh yeah, because they're not inflamed. I found it so interesting that how the sickness, I guess, compounds on itself. It's like you're inflamed, which is already causing all kinds of issues. You take something to help those issues, but because you're inflamed, it's not even you can't even get what you need from that.
it becomes a real vicious circle
Yeah.
because the body, in doing what your immune system is doing to protect you, to protect itself, ends up having a lot of side effects that make everything worse.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from, and not to pull any punches, but to be blunt. And I'm as much part of the problem as anybody. So I'm not, I'm not so much preaching to the choir. I'm preaching as one of the people who's been doing it wrong, making improvements, but I've been doing it wrong for the last half century. So, um, the deeply abnormal and unnatural diet that we consume on a regular basis here in the United States. Um, which is not normal. It's normal because everybody does it, but it's not healthy and
Hmm.
it's not what our body requires. And it's a bunch of things that our body has no use for whatsoever
Hmm.
and that are bluntly toxins. And, you know, if you take all this crap in, it's going to have negative effects. And we primarily, almost all of us, experience them. And, you know, our culture really reinforces taking in all of this trash that is not good for us. We didn't evolve to need these things. We evolved to need other things that we're not getting enough of. And our whole body is built to take in certain things that are absolute necessities, of which we're often getting the minimum of,
Mm.
and have no need for other things of which we're getting a ton of.
Yep.
And often it tricks the brain. Sugar being, I would say, more so if you're drinking alcohol, and then I'm not telling anybody how to live their life, and I'm not, getting on a soapbox about anything. But if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, at some level, you know that that's not good for you. You may choose to do it anyway. You may choose to do it here and there. Everyone's different. But
No
you know
judgment
that,
here.
yes, exactly. But you know that that's a vice. You're not confusing it with a health food. Okay, you know what you're taking in. If you're smoking cigarettes, again, I'm not telling you what to do, but you know that that's a vice. You know that's not good for you. Nobody anywhere is going to say that that's good for you. Sugar, on the other hand, slides under the radar, and you can think that you're eating really healthily, and you're still getting, it's my show. You're getting a shit ton, okay, of unnecessary sugar, of the worst kinds. There are naturally occurring sugars in, well, when you eat an orange, for example,
Yeah.
that are good for you.
Hmm.
But what you're getting in a bowl of, I don't need any suits, but any commonly available breakfast cereal, um, you know, is probably a lot of unnecessary sugar. What you're getting in the ketchup, in the barbecue sauce, in the what have you, is unnecessary sugar that's just laden there to make the product more enticing
Yes.
and
To
to have
keep you
it meet,
buying it.
yes, to keep you buying it and to allow cheaper ingredients to be used. And you can use really cheap, but not very good ingredients and dump a pound of sugar on it, and it'll taste pretty good,
And let me tell you, listener,
Please.
these ingredients really are cheaper than you think. Have you ever gone to the grocery store and you saw water was $2, and you look next to it and you see undisclosed soda brand um is cheaper than the water. And which is bizarre because water is used to create that, but it's definitely there's more ingredients in there. That's because these companies that are making these sugary drinks and sugary foods, those sugars are heavily subsidized. They're getting money to use those sugars, or to or at least they're paying a lot less to use those sugars. um and I found that bizarre because I remember seeing that a long time ago before I was on this tip. um like, how is undisclosed soda name, um how is that less than water? So Yeah, they really they want you to, they're making it as cheap as possible for you so that you can keep buying it. You're saying.
Absolutely. And this is not something that I'm glad you brought that up, Star, because this is something that the sugar lobby uses its power to get money from the government, from, in other words, the taxpayers,
Hmm.
to then put sugar to make a profit and by putting sugar back into the stuff that we eat. So
Hmm.
they get us kind of coming and going. Um, let me see here, because this is a fairly recent article here. It is from thehill.com, a site that just tracks things that are going on in Congress. It's a nonpartisan website that covers things that are put out by people in Congress. This is a November 19th, 2023 article by Vince Smith.
Oh
The
yeah.
sugar lobby's up to its old tricks again. And so, I mean, this is still going on. This is going on right now. Um, the General Accounting Office report that came out Halloween of 2023, U.S. consumers have been paying 3 to 4 billion more annually for their sugar because of the federal sugar program. That amounts, and it talks about the hidden tax by raising the price of sugar, but the it goes into the price supports that sugar growers receive and the tariffs against foreign sugar and how much of the law and spending by Congress um, goes to support the sugar lobby.
Mm.
And it's billions. And
Mm.
then that gets flipped around. And because sugar is cheaper to produce and put into things than it otherwise would be, um, basically we're paying them to put things that are bad for us into our food.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, to me, the definition of corruption. You
Yeah.
know, we're paying for it. So, and then we're eating stuff that definitely causes harm to people.
And we're
And
paying for it. We're paying for them to put the sugar in our food. And then furthermore, we're buying the sugar and eating it and taking it. And then further still later down the line, where we're sick, we have diabetes, we have heart disease, and then we're paying on that. We're paying for that as
then you
well.
support the medical industry. Yes.
Yes, that
Eh,
I think that's where the real conspiracy. I mean, it's all conspiratorial, but I think that's where the biggest conspiracy is because the medical industry is not on our side here. I'm not saying that too loudly, but
we're not
uh
anti-vaxxers here. We're not saying don't go to the doctor if you have a broken leg, none of that.
yes.
But if you look long term, diet isn't emphasized enough. And when
Hmm.
it is emphasized, it tends to be a very fat shaming,
Hmm.
racially biased, many other biases, all the biases stacked up.
As biased as you can get.
Yes, in a very bad way that really pushes people in a different direction.
Yeah.
And often the
That's on
go-to,
purpose.
oh, yes, well, go ahead, please.
Well, no, that's I just wanted to throw that
Okay,
in there.
yes, yes. Um, sometimes this is completely intentional. Sometimes it's just kind of the biases that are woven into from college to medical school to residency to practice. Doctors have been given this mainstreaming of all of these biases that prevent talking to people in an empathetic way about diet,
Mm.
even if they're aware of diet, which many doctors aren't really that aware of. They're not
Yeah.
focused on diet. They're, and it's kind of, you know, maybe I'm getting sidelined, but I don't think I am. Think of a TV show. Think of how many hospital doctor shows there are, like Grey's Anatomy and things like
Hmm.
that. Think how often does diet come up? freaking
Never.
never. I mean, maybe, I don't really watch that stuff
No,
that much, but
never,
never. It really
never.
doesn't, you know. But
But you
it's
know
a huge
who,
factor.
you know what doctors do? Uh, if their patient comes in and there's something wrong with them, they they say, well, what's their diet like? You want to guess which doctors do?
Who's that? Well, I don't know. Go ahead. Let me guess. Is it your general
Pick.
practitioners?
It's a good guess, but no. It's veterinarians. They,
Okay.
as if you take in your, if your dog is like some chronic illness and you take him in and the first question they normally ask is, well, what's your dog's diet like? But I
You
mean, we
really
don't.
nailed something there, Star. I had not thought of that, but you're right. As a pet owner, I can say they do. They're more likely to ask me about my dog's diet than
Mhm.
my doctor is to ask me about my diet.
Yes, it's when I read that, I was stunned. I was like, because it's so true. The veterinarians know how important diet is to your dog. They know how, to your cat, to whatever. They know how important it is. But our doctors, no shade to our doctors. If you're a doctor listening to this, appreciate everything you do. But our
Oh yes,
doctors
there's
haven't
many
figured it
great
out
people
yet.
in medicine, and yes, it's just the institution
Yeah.
sometimes has the
They're
cart
not
way ahead of the
taught
horse.
to, yeah, they're not taught to, ask about our diet. And that's absolutely on purpose by the sugar lobbies. And that's the conspiracy.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, I've never made a secret of having had mental illness. You know, I have very serious PTSD, and that's been a big chunk of my life.
Mm.
And so I've seen psychiatrists,
Mm.
and I don't think I've ever had a psychiatrist ask me about my diet,
Mm.
which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Usually it was just which of these SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, your Prozac type antidepressants, which of these can we get you on? And
Oh,
the answer is none because for me the side effects are always worse than whatever I had before.
oh,
Uh,
dang.
it's bad. That stuff does not work for me.
Okay.
But the fact that diet, and to my best recollection, has never come up in any significant way at all
Yeah.
is fascinating because because it's a huge factor in mental health. Your mood is really affected by your diet.
Yes.
Diet and sleep
Entirely
and
almost.
hydration, you know, diet, sleep, hydration, and things you shouldn't be putting into your body like alcohol and nicotine. Um, if you get those four, a lot of other problems probably get a lot better.
Yeah.
Um, Exercise as well. Um, there's a lot of things we can do at a non-pharmaceutical level that maybe you don't need as much pharma as if you
Hmm.
do these things at a level that you can do on your own,
Yeah.
and of course the problem there is nobody makes big money from you getting enough sleep, enough water, working out,
Yeah.
nobody really makes money off of that. So it's easier and more convenient to prescribe something.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets paid, and you keep eating the stuff that is making you feel this way in the first place.
Yeah.
And, I realize, hey, I love convenience as much as anybody. It's nice when things can just flow smoothly and you have more time. I love convenience, but everything in the world shouldn't be sacrificed to convenience either.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, and I'm really going back to the ADHD, and you know, if this kid is hyper as hell, that's not a medical term, but a commonly used term, and certainly not just kids. Plenty of adults deal with this. If we looked at the amount of exercise, the what are they eating, the diet, the sleep, the hydration, the other factors, the screen time, the things like that, you might not need as frequently to be on heavy pharmaceuticals,
Mm,
which, I'm not saying, now there are people, there are certainly millions of people in our world that definitely need to be on
yes.
prescription pharmaceutical medication. Absolutely. I'm not denying that. I'm
Yeah.
just, there is a tendency for that to be a go-to rather than a last resort. And
Yeah.
that kind of thing is important.
Agreed. Absolutely. And
And
I just
go
want
ahead.
to say to our listeners, like this, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, damn, I just ate sugar 10 minutes ago, and you're feeling guilt, like don't feel guilt because this is you so many, not only is this, what's the word? Hidden, not hidden, but like so like
It's
swept under the
overlooked.
table,
It's downplayed. Exactly.
downplayed. Not only is this extremely downplayed, it's also they don't want you to be educated in this at all. Like if you're listening to this and you're feeling like, oh, I should have done better for my body, one, I think it's great that you're thinking that way, that you want to do better for your body. But two, like it is not your fault that these sugar lobbies are, keeping you addicted and like misinforming you and confusing all the data that's about sugar. Um, that's not on you. Um, I just want to, yeah, I really want to clarify that because when I quit sugar, I felt a little bit, I felt some guilt, like I felt like I should have known, like I should have done better, like I'm trying to be healthy, but I've been drinking all this decaf coffee with tons of like, oh, like so much sugar in it. um but no, it's really like the odds are against we the people. I'm just saying.
Oh,
um
yes. And go ahead. I don't want to talk over you here, Star, but I'm
the
just
odds,
agreeing as hard as I can because the marketing is enormous.
it's insane.
Yes, you have to dig into to find this stuff. You have to go out and look at it, to know what we're talking about and
Hmm.
what's in the stuff that you're eating. It takes, a couple steps more of awareness and of effort, and it's not something that's intuitive at all.
Mm.
And just going through day-to-day life, nobody's going to tell you how to be healthier by getting rid of excess sugar. Um, but you're going to be
Not
hit
even
with
your doctors.
exactly. Your doctor's probably not going to bring it up. You're going to be hit with 35 commercials a day for something that has added sugar in it.
Absolutely.
Walk,
Yeah.
walking down the aisle of anything like a normal supermarket, you're just going to be bombarded with stuff
Yeah.
that is loaded with extra sugar, that is processed to death, that is not in your best interest. But nobody is really looking out for your long-term best interest. They're
Yeah.
looking out for how to make money. And marketing is a huge industry. And I don't blame any individual, including myself, um,
Yeah. Please don't. Please
yeah,
don't
that
blame
doesn't
yourself.
serve anybody's purpose. You can't come at this from a point of guilt, because you've been
You've been
to not,
misinformed.
yes, I was going to say brainwashed,
Yeah, even
not
better.
not to exaggerate, but you really have from an early age. From an Your parents certainly were, your grandparents were,
Oh, for
all
sure.
of us,
And then if you are on a health, like if you're on a health tip, if you're like, oh, I'm going to get healthy this year, and you do it, uh, those health article, like the first health articles or health influencers that you see, they're not talking about sugar. They're talking about fat, which is healthy for you, depending on the fat. So yes, please don't feel guilty. And just know that just know that if you have the drive to be healthy and to feel healthy, that's a wonderful thing. And it's never too late. Never ever too late.
absolutely. And you have to start where you are. You can't
Yeah.
start where you want to be. You have to start where you actually are
Yeah.
and do more as you can do more and learn more as you're able to. And, hey, everybody can make a better life.
Hmm. Absolutely. Jeff has actually made some amazing life changes in the past, I guess, 2, 3 months, like some really wonderful ones.
Thank you. Thank you, Star. I appreciate it. Well, and we're going to cover in a little bit. You have kicked sugar
I have,
or
yes.
kicking or,
I
when you grow up in America, it's hard to, you know,
Well, well, I'm not gonna lie, it was difficult, but the more I know about it, the easier it is to stay off of it. Um, I also got, I think I got lucky, because I don't have a sweet tooth. Like if you are addicted to sugar and have a sweet tooth, I'm sorry, but no,
it'd be a tough
I
thing, but
have
it's doable.
always, I've always preferred savory snacks, so I did get lucky in that regard. Um, I don't know, is now the time to talk about uh like
Your personal experience?
my experience quitting sugar,
I
or should
was
we
I
save
was
it?
thinking we're going to do a Patreon on that right after this.
Right. Yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Yeah, but so hang around, folks. This should be interesting. Um, but yes, the entire marketing end of this, the major food manufacturers load their products with extra sugar
Hmm.
because it makes it more satisfying. It allows them to use cheaper, low quality ingredients, as Star pointed out, cheaper than water.
Hmm.
So yes, really cheap. Um, and there is an addictive component, and it like a literal addiction, and if you knew someone who was addicted to a narcotic, you wouldn't give them advice about what else to do with improving their health until they
Yeah.
kicked whatever drug they're on.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be number one.
Yeah.
And yet that's not the approach that our medicine takes. That's not the approach our most of our health gurus take.
Hmm.
Um, that's not the approach that experts take frequently when dealing with children or when dealing with adults
Yeah.
in mental health, in heart disease, diabetes, liver issues, high blood pressure, cholesterol, any of those things, all of which sugar is a culprit.
Yeah.
Um, Usually that's not much of a go-to. And even the dietitians that I have spoke with in my life really didn't focus much at all on sugar as opposed to the often exaggerated, very much exaggerated dangers of fat.
Hmm.
When the human body does have a need for some fat, it doesn't really have any need for the corn syrup variety of sugar.
Yeah.
You could live the rest of your life without that, and you'd be
You
fine.
you live a
You
great
know,
life.
yes. And the naturally occurring sugars in things like fresh fruits,
Yes.
that will be more than enough for you if you're eating a good diet.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
but
do want to say, so when you eat fruits, it's better. So if you eat like a cup of strawberries that has the same amount of sugar as, like, I guess, a candy bar, the exact same amount of sugar, more sugar is hitting you when you eat that candy bar because uh there's no fiber in that candy bar. Um so not only are we eating too much sugar, we're also probably, most likely, most of us are not getting enough fiber. So what fiber does, just a quick science lesson. So what fiber does in your body is it goes into your gut, and it so we the human body, the human stomach doesn't need fiber, but our microbiome does. So that fiber goes into our body and it feeds our microbiome, and the microbiome, it makes a coating along the inside of our gut and intestines. So when you eat those fibers, the sugar comes along and it does not go into your gut. It doesn't get like absorbed into your body as quickly as, just sugar from a candy bar would, because of that fiber. It's creating a protective barrier around, yeah, around your gut, which is absorbing those nutrients. And Yeah, it's just it's protecting your body from taking in that sugar too quickly, which also decreases the sugar spike that you'll get from the strawberries, which stabilizes your mood. Fiber is great. If you, I recommend that you eat more fiber because if you're, not only does it make you feel, not only does it protect you from sugar, it also makes you feel fuller longer because a lot of times when you're feeling hungry, it's it's not you, it's your microbiome that's hungry because it can't eat what we're eating. It can't eat, fat, protein, nutrients. It eats fiber. So if you're feeling hungry but you just ate, you probably need more fiber because that microbiome is feeling hungry. Not giving you medical advice though.
No,
Sorry.
no, but that raises a really good point that you're eating a bowl of strawberries, you're
Mm-hmm.
eating an orange, you're eating naturally occurring sugar in the form of fresh fruit.
Mm-hmm.
That has a drastically different effect in your body
Mm-hmm.
than when you eat a candy bar or drink a full-on sugar soda. Um, I mean, you could compare that kind of to like dragging out a cigarette, could you not? The way that it spikes, the sugar goes directly into your bloodstream, and you get the effects really fast
Mm,
and really
mm.
hard,
Yeah,
and in a way that we're not really cut out for.
yeah,
Um, the eating, your body needs fruit, and vegetables, and
yes,
some of those have, a good amount of carbs and sugars in them,
yeah,
but they're processed in a way that's natural for our bodies,
yes.
and
I
that's
just want to
very
be
different. Go ahead.
clear. The sugar in a strawberry is in the body, the sugar in a strawberry is the same as sugar in a candy bar. They're the same. um how your body reacts to sugar is the same, no matter what source it's coming from. It's just what it comes with. Okay, so if it comes with fiber and nutrients from that strawberry, it's getting in your body less quickly, which is affecting you and your insulin in a much less drastic and inflammatory way than the sugar bar or soda that you're just drinking. I just wanted to, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh yeah, because they're two very different things,
Yeah,
and you know it's easy to just look at the calorie count or the carb count, and that doesn't tell the full story.
it doesn't.
You know, and there's just so many products that when you start going through them, things you'd never think of that have a lot of added sugar, and it's very intentional and it's very concealed, and there's whole marketing campaigns that you cannot really be engaged with the outside world in our society and not be subjected to them,
Mm,
not be influenced by them to some extent.
yeah.
Um, they're great.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about. There's nobody in America who's not Amish. Okay. They probably know too. Who doesn't think of a talking tiger when I say they're great?
Oh man.
And they're, well, frosted. They're not frosted because they're left out overnight and it snowed. They're frosted because there's sugar on them.
Right.
And even at a little age, where you're baby barely able to say they're great,
Oh.
you're conditioned with that. So that's the world we all grow up in. That's the
Yeah.
all world we all live and move in. And so, I don't want anybody to get down on themselves because they've been doing it wrong for the last however many years,
Yes,
because we
please
all
don't.
have. We're
Yeah.
all immersed in this media environment, which, you know, wants to make the most money possible.
Mhm.
And when it comes to food, when it comes to anything edible, um, the goal, is to make money. And the means to do that is often to stick extra sugar in there. And, that's how the game works in
Yeah.
in our society. But hey, we still have enough freedom here that you don't have to be part of that. You
Yes.
can make your own decisions. You can look into what's actually nutritious and what's not.
Yes.
And, you can educate yourself in this and choose to eat in a better way and have better effects.
Mm.
And Tell me if you would agree with this, Star, that it's not it's not more expensive to eat healthy. Not
Yeah,
significantly.
I would agree. Yeah, I have a pretty healthy diet, and yeah, I've like cut out my morning decaf coffee, saving $6.12 every morning, so that's pretty good. Um, actually purchasing like salmon instead of like I don't know a veggie burger. I guess they're about the same price depending on how much salmon I get because veggie burgers are surprisingly expensive. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not, yeah, like, I'll get collard greens instead of like, I don't know, like donuts. I don't know.
But
Sorry.
yes, no, no,
Okay. And
I
co
agree. There's
collard greens
sometimes,
are
go ahead.
like 29 $1.29 at my local Kroger, and that's really affordable. Um, I would say I mean, I guess I remember back in the day, like in that biology class, we watched a video that was saying a movie, a documentary that was saying it's more expensive to eat healthier. But I mean, if you just like with anything, if you like play your cards right, if you spend your money right, and like uh get what you need, and like are paying attention to the prices, it can absolutely be less expensive.
Yes, yes. And you know, looking around at the fruits and vegetables and I got nothing to say this, but at Aldi's, um, Aldi's can feel free to endorse me just anytime. Now they sell a ton of processed, sugar-loaded stuff, but they also sell fresh fruits and vegetables at very good prices.
Yes.
And that's just one example from around here. Nothing has to break the bank to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And, you know, often I think you'll find that the stuff that isn't good for you costs more anyway.
Mm.
It
Right, because
is,
fast food's getting pretty expensive nowadays.
yes, and it's terrible. So, you know, but it's an industry, it's a huge industry
Hmm.
that keeps itself not only afloat, but doing quite well
Yeah.
without, despite everybody knowing it's bad for you. You know? And I mean, I think that's pretty common knowledge, but you know, these things continue.
Do you think the issue is that people just aren't aware of exactly how bad it is for them, and that's why they keep going?
Yes, I would add, well, I'd say a couple things. One, we're culturally habituated to it.
Mm.
We've all grown up with it, at least the vast majority of us. And then we're hit with the media all the time.
Mm.
I hear that bum 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 song and I want a Big Mac because it's
Oh.
you know, Pavlov's dog. I've got that jingle in my head
Oh
for the last few
yeah.
decades that I hear that, you know, I hear that tune and it says Big Mac, must have Big Mac. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, that is a thing.
Mm.
We've been conditioned, and I'm in this case, I mean that quite literally, we've been conditioned to want a Big Mac when you hear
Mm.
the sound, you
Yep.
know, and that's all around us all the time. It's hard to shake off that. You know, you don't just, you know, I'm just going to be an individual today. Well, that's easier said than done, you know, and you have to start where you are and do what you
Yeah.
can do. And it's a gradual process. But yeah, there's huge, and that's why I don't blame anyone for
Yeah.
being caught up in this stuff because there's a massive marketing campaign for every different product out there. And there's even product placement in TV and movies.
Yeah.
Um, you see this stuff is all around you and it's designed to get in your head and make you want this. And that does that. And when there's really very little pushback, there's very little, you know, we're talking about it. Uh, well, you know, Dr. Lustig's talking about it, but
Yeah.
not a hell of a lot of people are talking about it
Yeah.
compared to the tidal wave of, you know, buy this now messaging
Yeah.
that you get all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's very, it's a hell of a lot easier to go with the flow and kind of do what everybody else does than to try to swim against the tide, you know,
Yes.
and see, hey, wait, you don't have to live like that. You don't have to take in these things that aren't helping you and are actually hurting you. But you have to be aware that that even exists before you can do that.
Right.
And there's not a lot of sources out there telling you that, hey, stop doing this and do this instead, and it'll help you, you know.
There's a lot. They're just swept under the rug.
True enough.
They do
True.
not want you to know about it.
Yes. And I know that that sounds to some like we're wearing our tinfoil hats and we're saying they don't want you. Well, who's the they? Well, okay, I can
Big
tell you who the
sugar.
they is. All the big companies, these things get reported, but they don't get emphasized.
Hmm.
They get mentioned, and then we'll talk about something else, and they don't get highlighted, they get lowlighted and they get
Mm.
put away because, all of the press, whether it be TV, newspapers, magazines, whatever you call media, all online, all of it runs on money, and money runs on this is a word from excuse me, sorry. This is a word from our sponsors. Well, it runs on sponsorship, you know.
Mm.
And if you're a company that's making, and there are a number of them, and they're easy to look up, so I don't need to name names and create any legal issues. But if you're a company that makes food and you make mass market, easily eaten processed food, you are a big sponsor for a lot of network TV, a
Hmm.
lot of the big newspapers, a lot of online things.
A lot of research
Oh,
programs.
yes. And you pay the scientists to find the stuff that you want found and not mention the stuff that you don't want
Yeah.
found. And that goes on. And you probably own a few Congress people. You know? You don't own them, but you rent them. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And, you know, you have influence. And if you're running, a TV network, you don't need to lose sponsors. You want the machine to continue, so you keep making money and everybody makes money and we all live happily ever after and the public gets
And
the
die of
results.
diabetes. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And but you don't die of it right away. So in the meantime, Big Pharma can make their money and
Yeah.
the private hospital industry can make their money.
Yeah.
And, we could do a whole separate
That's what bothers me the most, I think.
we could do a whole separate show on medical billing and the costs of being in the hospital and how, which doesn't mean don't go to the hospital if you need to go to the hospital. If you need to go to the hospital, go.
Please do. Yes.
Yes. But there is an industry there too.
Hmm.
And it's not a clear cut black and white, good or bad. No, we need healthcare,
Hmm.
but the healthcare industry is a huge industry, multi-billion dollar. And it has its own interests, which are not really in helping people get better, or certainly not preventative care. We're not into that. You know?
No, no. Their goal is not to help, but to treat what the issue is. They want to treat the cause, but they don't want to cure the cause because, well, if it's cured, you're not giving them money anymore. Um, that yeah, that's I
There's a
it
large bottom line on a lot of this stuff, and yeah, it doesn't. Ironically, your dog will probably get better care than you will,
Mhm.
because when you bring the dog in, they're going to ask, well, what is his diet like?
Yeah.
In a way that they won't if you come in. And, many of these things are treatable and preventable and even reversible. Now, that's not a blanket. Okay. Some people are born with things,
Yeah.
some people are born with genetic dispositions toward things,
Mhm.
but many conditions are treatable, preventable, and reversible with lifestyle changes
Yes.
that are not always mentioned at all, let alone emphasized and said, no, first go and do this. When I
Hmm.
first got diabetes, um, I really wish the first doctor I talked to had said, before I give you insulin, go and, eliminate this, and this from your diet and eat more of this. And, and give me like some sort of sheet. This is what you should eat. This is what you should not eat. And do that rigorously for 6 months and then we'll see if you really need insulin. Story could have been a lot different. We don't know.
Well, I have a
Um,
question for you.
yes, please.
Um, and let me give a little context first. So a lot of the studies that show that have been ignored or been made to be ignored were ignored for this quote, which is like rat, for example, like rats will rats who eat sugar versus rats who eat fat, the ones that are, eat sugar are less healthy or die faster. That like studies like that. Um, those studies are often swept under the rug for this quote, which is no no human, no person in America would eat that way. Like no one's actually doing that. So that's not technically realistic. So we don't need to we just ignore that. Um, if my question to you, if your doctor told you like, well, you're pre-diabetic, I want you to cut out all refined sugar or all all added sugar and come back to me in 6 months, how likely are you to actually make those changes?
Well, as an individual, I'll be honest, it would be a, now I'm going back a ways, I'm going back well over a decade. Um, it would have been a tough thing to hear. Um, Especially because it would have kind of come out of left field from everything I'm used to hearing. Um, I don't know how I individually would have reacted to that. Hopefully, hopefully I would have taken it to heart.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had a good relationship with that doctor, would have at least tried to do that and see how that worked. Um, I'll be honest, you're still going against the, you
All the
know,
programming,
upstream from
all the
everything the
marketing,
culture is feeding you. Yeah.
yeah, all
You're
the
swimming
addiction.
upstream. Yes. And the very literal addiction that most of us have. Um, I still feel I should have been told stuff like that,
Yeah.
you know, that I and really had it emphasized and, you know, at least had a fighting chance of doing what was necessary then
Mm.
to, prevent that from ever taking place. Um, that's a good question, though. That really is. And
Thank you.
unfortunately, it's just so much programming to overcome that I don't know whether I would have done that or not. Um, I
I
will tell
think
you, go ahead.
yes.
Um, I will tell you, and this isn't near term. This isn't like, a month from now.
Yeah.
But in a longer term, I am hoping that through modifying my diet and exercise and all my different regimes, that I can reverse the diabetes and
Mm.
not be on insulin
Yes. Yes,
and
yes, yes,
other things that I'm on. Yeah. I think that is very possible. Now, it's not going to be the single easiest thing I've ever done.
yes.
Kind of the opposite, but that doesn't mean it's not possible.
Mhm.
You just got to do it. You got to do what it takes. And, um, that's something that I am increasingly becoming aware of, and that, you know, I can have a lot better life by changing a lot of the things that I absorb into my body
Mm.
and, what I do with what's available, can really have life-changing effects. And I don't think that I have to be on insulin and other things for the rest of my life. Um, no, nothing stupid here, folks. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not throwing away my insulin. That would be just a quick trip to the emergency room in the
Oh
next couple
shit.
of weeks. Um, Rather, if I modify my diet, modify, how I exercise and how much and things like that, treat all the things that I can easily do that I can do. I won't say it easily, but that can be done at a like more, I even don't like the term lifestyle choices, but at that level of things I directly control, I believe that I can get to a point where I don't need the insulin anymore. And when
I
my
believe you can
MD
too.
signs off that you don't need it anymore, then I'll stop taking it. But that's a more of a longer term goal. But yeah, that's there.
That's a wonderful goal to have.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's, and I don't feel it's too late at all, that diabetes is reversible for many people. Not everybody. And I mean, everybody's going to deal with this differently. I mean, some people die of it. Other people, it's a minor inconvenience. And some people are able to reverse it. So if possible, I'd really love to reverse it. So we'll see what the future holds there, but I am optimistic.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, I did want to mention just a couple other things,
Yes.
um, just to show the power of the sugar lobby, um, is amazing, and it not only it extends way beyond marketing and influence. It goes into very much into politics and even into foreign affairs, and it's just amazing that you know an industry would have that level of control in our society, but it is true and is little remarked upon in the press, probably for reasons that I, have mentioned.
Mhm.
Um, Here's a February 3rd, 2022 article by a Hannah Morris of the Palm Beach Post, which is reprinted in ProPublica.org, that is. And it's called How the Sugar Industry Makes Political Friends and Influences Elections. Quite a lot of power for an organization that just promotes sweets, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Um, so yes, and I'm quoting from the top here. Last year, the Florida legislature, so they'd be referring to 2021, was in the midst of an extraordinary push to protect the state's farming industry from lawsuits over air pollution. Supporters argued that the legislation was critical to protecting Florida's agricultural businesses from frivolous lawsuits. But some lawmakers were skeptical, noticing the residents of the state's heartland who were bringing a suit against sugar companies would feel their case anything but frivolous. And it goes on that essentially Big Sugar had a huge influence on environmental regulation, and that it was being done in a way that completely protected the sugar industry from people suing over the damage that it was doing to the environment and to the places they lived. Um, let's see, looking for an example here.
Oh, are you talking about the black snow that they called it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. Yes, the Joaquin Almazan stepped to the microphone as newly elected city commissioner in Belle Glade, the
Hmm.
largest city in the sugar-rich Glade region, where the smoke drops black snow on residents throughout every burning season. Okay. Yes, that's
Yeah.
allowed to go on because of the power of the sugar lobby. Um, at a state level, at a federal level, um, often big sugar is terrible for the environment. And yet is often protected from the consequences thereof
Hmm.
by politicians that have received a lot of money from sugar producers, sugar processors, those who are creating and distributing the sugar. And it's bad for us individually, it's bad for us societally, and it's bad for us environmentally.
Yes.
It's just all the way around bad. And and yet it has a huge amount of power. Very much like big tobacco used to have.
Mm.
And for a long time, well, I won't say it ever really fully stopped because they're still pushing the vapes and the that is it Zyke, those smokeless today's version of chewing tobacco, even though it doesn't have any tobacco in it, but it does have nicotine in it that gets you
Oh.
hooked hard.
Oh,
Um,
I wouldn't know.
it's popular in some quarters, it's really popular among some people,
Mm.
that they're essentially kind of like smokeless pouches that you stick in your beneath your gum line.
Oh,
And they're terrible for you. And they will definitely 100% get you addicted to nicotine,
okay.
which is kind of the goal because once you get somebody addicted, then they keep buying it.
Yeah, can't
So
stop buying it.
yes, yes. Um,
For
and
those
that's go ahead.
listeners wondering, the way that the sugar is in Florida that Vincent was just talking about, the way it's bad for the environment is what they do is instead of cutting off the leaves of the stalk of the sugar cane, they just burn them off, leaving the stalk behind. And they just burn it, and the ash and smoke goes into the air. And I guess they're just producing so much smoke and ash that it floods the nearby, neighborhoods and cities, and it floods them to the point where I think in that article, there was a testimonial that someone would had left that city, that village, to play football, and their teachers and coaches thought that they had like asthma because their breathing was so labored. And that's not just affecting that student, that person, but everyone who lives there. Um, so just for those who were wondering, that's how it's bad for the environment. And
Oh
also the
yes.
with the water, like the I think some sort of chemical that is a byproduct of the sugar cane is being released into the water, which of course is if we drink the water, it affects us, or it goes into the ocean and it's affecting the fish, which we eat, which affects us. So
All the way around, we're paying a huge cost
yeah,
for a product that we don't have a biological need for.
that is delicious though.
Yes, exactly. And you know, we're harming ourselves, taking something in that we don't need, that, the enjoyment of is addictive and is, and I speak as a sinner to other sinners. I'm not, saying this, I'm not talking down to anybody because
No, of
I've
course.
eaten as much of any of it. But you just become aware that we're paying as a society a huge cost in taxes, in our own spending habits, and in what it does to the planet and what it does to our bodies. And
In
it
every way
shouldn't,
possible,
yes,
really.
for something that is essentially a vice, that is no better than alcohol or tobacco, and yet it has a huge sized influence on our society. Um, just to mention one more article that really kind of shows the power here. This is from economicthinking.org. All is one word, economicthinking.org. Uh, October 27th, 2016, article by Gregory Remke called Cuba, Big Sugar, and Federal Agricultural Policy. And so, yes, the sugar lobby is even influences and in some cases controls US foreign policy. And just ask yourself why in 2024 do we still have an embargo against the island of Cuba?
Mm.
I mean, I grew up in the Cold War. I remember when the Soviet Union and Fidel Castro were allies. It was a big political deal. But that was a long time ago. And why has that ban continued? Well, it doesn't have much to do with communism. Nobody's really that concerned with communism anymore. Um, it does, however, have a lot to do with the sugar lobby. And I'll just start from the top here. Ending the Cuba trade embargo would shift sugar production back to Cuba and away from ecologically fragile lands in the US. And it links to a Florida Sun Sentinel article called Protect the Everglades, Not Sugar Farmers, and goes on into why, you know, there's been such resistance to dropping the embargo with Cuba, though in no way would Cuba pose a threat to the United States.
Mm,
And it would be economically probably good for Cuba and probably good for the United States.
mm,
And we could protect the Everglades, which are a really, unique and ecologically delicate area.
mm.
If we weren't growing sugar there, because sugar cane grows more easily in Cuba, but that doesn't make big sugar any money. So the embargo continues. And it
Right.
just shows, yeah, it shows where the tentacles of this thing go all the way up to deciding, you know, our relations with other countries. And that's a lot of power.
Yeah.
That's a huge
That's
amount of power
that's scary.
for one product, And it really that is kind of the name of the game there is to keep this money making machine going. And it's not good for us as individuals, it's not good for us as a society, it's not good for us as a country, and it's not good for our planet. And yet it continues to this moment. It's going on right now. And I guess is there anything you'd like to add right now, Star?
I was gonna ask, was that the article that was explaining that like this sugar, if Cuba were able to you know give is that the article that was saying that if Cuba was able to I don't know, sorry, I don't really
Export
have
sugar
the
to the United States?
yes, thank you. That it would lessen the cost that like we the people are like it lessens sugar for us. Is that
Oh,
the one that was
yes.
explaining that? Okay.
Yes. Sugar, to the extent that you do need to buy it for some things, would be cheaper.
Okay.
And so, yes, as again, they get us coming and going. You know, our
Okay.
tax
Okay.
money goes to prop up the price of sugar, which then goes into things that we eat. So we pay for it as consumers, we pay for it as taxpayers, and we pay for it if you live in a place where it snows black sometimes because they're burning sugarcane. We
Right.
pay for it all the way around. And we don't really reap any benefits, you know. And it's a real, there's a lot of people chase after a lot of different conspiracies, but here's something that's happening in plain sight and
Yeah.
is little known. It really, the average American, I don't think, gets how big a deal this is.
Right. Right. Which is by design by the
Yeah,
sugar
absolutely.
companies.
It's not going to be lead story anywhere,
And there was one other thing I did want to mention. I think I told this to you a while ago. Um, uh, undisclosed soda company um, uh, went to the NAACP to and they paid them a lot of money to say that saying that it's not good to sell soda in Black communities is racist. Um, like they're saying they're selling that things that would be healthy and helpful for lower income neighborhoods and communities is racist and prejudice against lower income individuals. They're saying that that's yeah, they're being paid to demonize those health policies, which um is not only crazy and wrong, but it's also I I personally feel like that's the opposite. That has the opposite effect because, and for those of you who can't tell, I'm Black, but for those communities, they often really don't know. I feel like there's less education in those communities, like less awareness, and more marketing and more. I feel like personally, and a lot of other people like me will agree, like those were a bit more you know hit a little bit harder in those areas because there is such struggle. Um so I just want to say, like, I think it is more racist to uh sell those sell those sodas and like and sorry, I know I'm tripping over my words. I think it's more harmful to the community to sell those highly sugary foods than to not, because um we're getting all those benefit like the not that not benefits deficits.
Measurements,
We're
yes.
getting all those deficits, and then we're getting less information on it. And I don't know, you can't say that all these healthy things are racist. Like, come on, like you can't.
It's a lot of
you
spinning. It's a lot of
you
spinning the issue.
that's some incredible spinning. Like how there's even I even read somewhere or heard somewhere in one of the videos I sent you that they're not weighing people anymore in medical checkups because apparently that's fat shaming, or yeah, that's like bias or prejudice, when really it's just a basic medical thing. um
Well, and you could, the stats are just there that, African American and low income communities are hit harder by obesity and diabetes and by the consequences of all the sugar than our other communities. And it takes a lot of spinning to turn that into something where it's fine. It's not fine.
yes,
It's terrible.
yes, thank you for saying that. I was sort of trying to yes.
No, I would compare it somewhat to the marketing of menthol cigarettes, which
Mm,
are worse than right, all cigarettes are bad for you, but menthols are even worse. And they tend to be marketed towards the African American community. And, there were some influencers who were paid to say, no, that's fine. And,
mm,
that's it's not fine. And that's a really terrible way to profiteer off of people who are already taking uh, the brunt, taking harder, you know, effects
yeah,
than the average person anyway. And
yes.
it
it
compounds it. It makes it even worse.
it just goes to show like how like the sugar lobby will stop at like there's no too far for them. There's
No, not
no,
at all.
as long as they can get you to be addicted to their product, they'll do whatever it takes. So
Yes.
be
And it,
mindful and be safe.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I mean, addiction is big business, you
Mhm.
know, and some of the worst cartels are the ones that are completely legal. You know,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
most of us. And, that's not to depreciate anybody who's dealt with narcotics or with meth or any of the other hard drugs.
yes, of course
But
not.
most of us probably won't end up caught up in that in our lifetimes. All of us will be affected by things like sugar and,
Hmm.
the other various addictive things that are sold. And often the process is almost exactly the same.
Hmm.
And, you know, I would just ask listeners to just take calmly, take inventory of your life and what goes into your body, what goes into your mind, what do you absorb
Yes,
from the environment, and what's good for you and what's not, what's harming you,
yes, and
and
with
make
compassion to
go ahead.
yourself.
Oh yes, yes, this is not a guilt trip. We're not going there at all.
No, no,
Uh,
no.
you know, um, and then do what you see is best for you. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's wonderfully said.
Thank you, Star. You're going to be around for Patreon in a few minutes?
I am, yes.
Great, great. Well, folks, I think we're kind of going to wrap up here. This has been The Weird Part. I'm Vincent Treewell. My special guest this evening has been Star Vance. She'll be joining us for a Patreon edition in a little while. Thank you for listening and good night.
Good night.